Welcome back to another episode of the Block Runner Podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's up, dude?
On the sticks, we got TJ.
Hello.
All right, we're finally back. We got Bitcoin volatile all over again, dude. Just like going back home.
I mean, it's really not doing much, isn't it? It's just crabbing around.
Well, today it hit 89,000, and then it went to 91,000. And then
tomorrow will probably be like 94.
Then yesterday was 94, actually.
And then it crashed to like 89.
And then it crashed to 89, yeah.
After the Fed chair meeting or whatever?
The 25 basis points cut.
Yeah.
And then there's more news about the United States buying Bitcoin.
Maybe. It's just going through like legislative processes, I guess.
Yeah, it has enough momentum to get through, I think.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
But they need to reevaluate their gold.
Yeah.
And then they're going to like chip some of that gold off, buy some Bitcoin.
Why not? Right?
Yeah, why not? You
diversify.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, and then there's the I don't know, like the semblances of like the beginnings of QE, I guess. There's like some sort of 40 billion a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they bought treasuries. Or not treasuries, like bonds or whatever.
I guess. Basically, you're buying back your own debt.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's like...
So now, it's a little bit more liquid.
The music's starting to, you can kind of hear the jazz. You can hear the saxophone playing again. The music may have stopped for a little bit, but it's not like... it's not completely quiet yet.
It's like the ghost from the past, like...
Yeah, it's not a full fiesta yet. We're not humming along in any regards, right?
No one's on the dance floor just yet. They're like, "Oh, should we get up?"
Exactly. Yeah, we're just kind of like questioning, dude. Oh man,
so are you going to dance? I was like, "Are you?"
I don't know if my knees can handle this today, stuff like that, right? But we're thinking about it. We're getting excited a little bit, right?
Yeah, so we're looking at the charts here, the good old rainbow chart. Man, I just see a pattern completely broken. That's what I see.
Not yet, dude. Not yet.
No, I mean, look at this pattern here. It's just like basically a straight line compared to these exponential explosions.
Yeah, but there's still like, time for a new exponent, right?
Well, for sure, yeah. So that's what they're saying now. It's like it's not a 4-year cycle; it's a 5-year cycle.
Right. But I think maybe it's okay. So that's what you're saying. Just the 4-year cycles, the expectation of these like price actions within the 4-year time frame.
Yeah. So I mean,
I should no longer operate under that.
I agree.
Assumption. Yeah.
I mean, that's what the data is telling us. I mean, remember years ago we would project out and we're like, okay, we're gonna see 150. It's gonna get clear into the yellow, and then that's a good time to exit because this is highly unlikely, whatever. Mm-hmm. So if we project out 1 year later. Clear into the yellow is around 240, 250
for Bitcoin.
Yeah. But then, since this is unprecedented territory, I mean, it could just stay here forever.
I don't know about that one, dude. I don't know.
Or it crashes back to the blue, and I mean, when does a 5-year cycle start? Right, we have a peak here, and that's the end of the 5-year cycle, and then we start a whole new 5-year cycle.
I guess. Well, what's to say the next one has to be 5 years? It could be 6, or for some reason it's back to 4. Right?
Yeah.
Who knows? It's kind of proving itself to these tools, these projections and such.
Yeah, I mean, to me, in my eyes, as long as it's within the rainbow range, we're right on schedule. It doesn't matter if it's overbought or oversold.
As long as it keeps going up and to the right.
Yeah.
In the zoomed out perspective, right? If we're starting to see it like really veer towards,
that's
down.
Michael Saylor's chants at night, up and to the right.
Yeah, basically. As long as that maintains, then everything's okay. It means we could still build an industry around this technology, this frameworking of blockchain.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly there's some use for it. You're starting to see, JP Morgan and other big banks.
Jamie Dimon is bullish on Bitcoin these days.
Oh, I don't know about Bitcoin. I think he's more bullish on blockchain.
That's true. It's blockchain.
Yeah, it's the utility of, I guess, like, having his banking, I guess, apparatus rooted
live 24/7.
Yeah, I guess. And, I think they're starting to identify all the different, vectors of benefit to that.
Yeah, I can
I
see
mean,
that.
they would have to in order for them to be bullish, right?
Yeah.
They wouldn't just endorse this technology for like the
Yeah.
funsies of it.
Yeah, for sure.
They've done all the quant analysis. They see all the money, the projections of how much more money they can make, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's legislation outlines a plan to phase in the acquisition of 1 million Bitcoin. Let's hear what this guy has to say.
Bitcoin Act establishes the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, a federal initiative to ensure that the United States holds a meaningful position in the most important decentralized financial network on Earth. With an eye to fiscal responsibility and innovation, the legislation outlines a plan to phase in the acquisition of up to 1 million Bitcoin, or roughly 5% of its total final supply over 5 years. Importantly, this will be done without raising taxes or increasing government debt. The Bitcoin Act is designed to be budget neutral, relying on Federal Reserve remittances, which exceeded $76 billion in 2023, gold certificate revaluations, unlocking additional capital without new spending, and updates to the Exchange Stabilization Fund. These mechanisms allow us to build a strategic reserve without burdening taxpayers, while also potentially offsetting long-term national debt. Bitcoin Act.
You know what I also heard is the United States is going to deliver $1,000 to $2,000 to people. Still, and
yeah, that's from tariffs, right?
Yeah, I just keep seeing it, and I'm not seeing like any like independent confirmations of such.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's happening yet. It's just like hearsay and Trump's like desire, I guess. He's projecting,
I feel like
kind of like declaring, tariffs as a victory in a sense.
Is $1,000 all really going to make that much of a difference or impact?
2,000
or 2,000? Is that?
Don't undersell it, dude. $2,000? I mean, I would really appreciate $2,000 right now, right? How is the distribution? Is it like per head of the per?
Well, I keep hearing household, so
per household.
Yeah, yeah, that's less of an impact, right?
For sure, yeah. If it's like if you can, I don't think you count kids, do you?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Damn, what a fumble. I don't know, man. I mean, it's gonna help some people for sure, but yeah, I mean, systemically, is this gonna like bring everything back? Probably not.
No.
But nonetheless, if it starts off with this, like, okay, the results of tariffs is like a quantifiably some sort of financial edge to where you can deliver value back to your citizens.
Yeah.
By like, I don't know, returning more value from abroad through these tariffs. It's like, all right, what about AI in the future and other different paradigms that are touting themselves to create like so much more value for, civilization?
Right.
Can we replicate these types of UBIs, if you will?
Yeah,
in order to sustain things, right? I mean, that's the big underlying question.
Yeah, Elon keeps talking about universal high income.
Yeah, that's like the forward project. He's talking about things like 100 years from now, right? He's been doing that a lot lately. He's trying to really sell his $1.5 trillion IPO here.
Yeah, I think it might be justifiable.
Right. But there's like, we don't just like fly through time until we get to these like new points of human existence, right?
That's true, yeah.
So we need to discuss more like transition.
Yeah, so basically
plans.
how do you start at 1.5 trillion and end at 15 trillion?
Well, how do you transition from like capitalism, like free market economics to universal high income or whatever the hell he said, basically sustainable abundance, right? Where, like he's saying, work is optional and all these things, right? All these economic dependencies we have today.
Right.
How do we get from now to there? And like, not have everything collapse in the interim.
Yeah, I think you got to start with UBI.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
so
maybe let's at least like run this experiment to see like if it actually does anything.
Yeah, I think I saw Coinbase. They're starting to distribute like maybe 1,000 or 2,000 to people in New York.
Wait, what?
Yeah, as like an experiment, a UBI experiment or something like that.
Coinbase?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Like from their own pockets, their own revenue?
I think so. Hold on, let me
you gotta find this. What the hell? That's interesting.
Coinbase, UBI. I think it was New York.
Wow, this is Mamdani's or whatever his name is. This must be his doing.
Coinbase funded a pilot program in New York. It distributed 12,000 in USD stablecoin to 160 low-income residents. That's it.
Yeah, that's pretty non-telling.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is that people have run experiments on UBI, but it's been in such a small group,
right?
That it's not a good experiment. You need to do this at full scale, which has huge implications, right?
Yeah, but what do you actually need to do for like a prototype proof of concept? I guess like
you got to run this experiment for at least like 3 years to really test it out.
3 years, but you need like a monthly delivery, right? At least like
some sort of check, some sort of like improvement in something, right? You need to see some KPIs.
Right, exactly. What are those KPIs? If the tariffs maintain through Trump's presidency and he's able to,
maybe the murder rate goes down.
Yeah. Does this have like an actual tangible, like relaying effect on society's state, right? Like crime goes down as a result, mental health goes up.
Yeah, maybe new businesses start up.
Relationship
divorce rates goes down.
I think that's why not, right?
That's what I mean. I think you need to run this for longer than a year.
For sure.
Because you're not going to see this information in a year.
Yeah, it takes a while to fall back in love. It's like money's been crushing the household for so long, and then all of a sudden it's like doesn't stress you out as much, and then it's like, you know what? You're hot again. It's like I love you all over again, dude. Yeah. It's like money really made me hate you for an X amount of time. But not so much anymore, right? We need to get back to that, dude, where we like love each other again. Yeah. It's like everybody fucking hates each other. It's crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of, Elon did an interview, and the comments were hilarious. So like new baby incoming.
Yeah, the new baby mama just dropped.
Yeah, did you see that, TJ?
No, I didn't.
Oh boy.
Well, you have a clip here?
No, I don't have a clip. But
okay,
or do I? Clip? No, I don't.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Elon's always good. Good. Is that her? No, that's not her. Looks like her.
No, it's not her. Here we go.
Yeah, that's her.
Ever do Doge again?
Do you mean would I repeat history or would I?
Two ways to think about it. One is if you could go back.
You pulled it up to like a point of the interview that you think is relevant or what?
No, not really. But I thought the comments were funny. They definitely new baby
you really
inbound.
you have to watch the whole thing to get the context.
Yeah, I mean this is an okay interview. I've heard some better ones, but
but I think it's okay to splice in like a.
It's fine, yeah.
Like a normie, I guess. Inquiry.
Man, if this is what normies like gravitate towards.
What do you? Yeah, I think normies want to know like more depth about the man himself, not so much like how do you plan on conquering Earth.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd like to know how he's conquering Earth. That's interesting to me.
But everybody's asking him what's your plans to conquer Earth and Mars.
I've seen the same question asked multiple times.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, how do you like your pizza?
Yeah.
I know. When's the last time you went to
CVS?
Yeah. How was it?
It's like I don't go
because I might die.
Yeah.
That's literally his answer. I literally can't go to these places because someone will probably kill me.
Yeah.
That's pretty weird and pretty telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, because of Charlie Kirk, I've like upped my like awareness of like how fragile.
Yeah, he was aware about it even before Charlie Kirk, but now it's like evidence. Like,
yeah, if a guy of that, I guess, societal impact was whacked.
Yeah.
What about a guy like me who's again trying to conquer humanity?
Yes.
I'm posing some sort of significant impact here, so my risks are high.
They were burning his cars.
Yeah.
So there's enough evidence to suggest you do need a full 24/7 team, like the president.
Yeah, I mean that's the first like Optimus bots I would create, like defense bots.
Yeah, this is Iron Man right here. This is why Iron Man was invented.
He needs to band together with the guy with the mohawk, or not the mohawk, the
Palmer Luckey.
Yeah, the guy who built the Oculus.
Yes.
Have you seen that, TJ?
Mm-mm.
Show him the helmet, dude.
Okay,
dude, he went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and this guy. So, okay, if anybody needs like protection, it's Elon and this guy. Because
so Joe
this guy's
Rogan-
trying to facet the entire military with actual Halo tech. Like it's pretty insane what he's working on. If you thought the Oculus was cool, like this is way cooler and way more practical. Like this will actually give you a battlefield edge.
At the Army's conference yesterday. We've been working on it for years. It's called Eagle Eye. So this is a video feed of what it is like to use the system. So I've got the helmet on here, and then this pair of augmented reality glasses. These sync with the helmet and with these sensors. So I can see where my gun is pointing. I can see where every enemy is. They're tracking where the bad guy is. They're tracking where my guys are. And then watch when they
Dude,
go
look
behind
at that,
the container.
dude.
So I can actually
actual
see
hacks.
through it and watch. Now they're engaging the guy over there, and he's
Guy
down.
just
You
dropped.
can all share a view of the world. And by the way, this view that I have, it's shared now with all of the robots as well. Let's see, I see someone
shit.
inside of a building. Every drone and every person now sees that person where he is.
Does it have the same functionality as like Walker game ears where you can
Where you hear-
amplify outside noises, but then
Wait, you
That
get
song
it.
just screwed us, right?
It probably did.
Who cares?
Well, I don't know. There's voices over it, so who knows?
Well, regardless, yeah, man.
Yeah, that's next level stuff, dude.
Well, that's actually Halo tech.
I mean, yeah, he's quickly becoming Master Chief here.
Isn't it crazy? Like, because you almost expect us to have something like that, right?
Yeah,
and then when it comes out, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that is really cool.
you expect it. Oh yeah, there's that yeah. So it's like, how do you power this new head device? It's like, oh, you know how soldiers carry like this
Your armor plate.
this 10-pound armor plate. We're just gonna turn that into a battery, but it still has the same effectiveness as an armor shield.
Yeah.
So it's like you can just apply that to your whole bodysuit, dude, like a Halo troop.
Yeah, I mean, I think these troops are carrying like 40 or 50 pounds anyways.
Yeah, so that was the big whatever you invent, Palmer Lucky. He's like, just don't make that any worse.
Yeah, still make it
that's
heavier.
the benchmark. You can't be more than like 40, 50 pounds in aggregate because
Yeah.
then we would slow down the soldiers significantly, right? Then we need like the bioengineering paradigm shift to come in to like genetically engineer human beings to be way stronger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, Captain America style.
Exactly. So
Did you see that movie?
no, I just said exactly.
Exactly like that.
I mean, it's got Captain America, dude. It's in the name.
Oh, he's a supercharged soldier, so
Charged by what?
through a serum that they gave him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And then he just got jacked and like
Yeah, he was
taller.
like literally a skinny dude, short,
yeah,
and then he just came out fully stacked.
fully jacked. Hell yeah, dude. And he's the only one, or what? They had like a
I don't know what happened. He's not the only one, but he's one of very, very few.
okay.
So why wasn't this like a whole army? I think something like disrupted it. I don't remember.
Yeah, well, all this stuff, dude. You got that Elon, $1.5 trillion IPO coming out soon. His whole plan to essentially like commoditize space.
Terraform Mars.
Yeah, like now there's value to actual space because now we can fixate, these AI satellites all throughout it,
Yeah.
which gives it like these proximity benefits to the sun, and
Yep.
it like becomes these like super cells of AI, productivity.
Yeah. Use space itself to cool down all the
Yeah.
units up there.
Yeah, like TJ said, like it seems like this stuff is like should have been obvious, but it just, all of a sudden it just
Yeah.
everybody agrees like this is what we should be doing.
Yeah. The CEO of Google is talking about putting satellites into space
Everybody.
for this reason. HPCs up there.
It's like, of course,
As soon as Elon says it, everybody is saying it.
right? Yeah, I wonder if there's a risk in that. It's like giving, I don't know, because of his track record, right? You just kind of gotta play ball.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's also like a good strategy from a first principles perspective. Like that's what we should be doing. It's just weird that Elon says it and now everybody's already doing it. Like,
Well, it's because of the demand, right? It's like now
Yeah.
everybody collectively we understand the value of AI, which is a recent development.
and they're running out of energy. It's like energy sources are scarce.
Yeah, so it's either we all pile on to Elon's vision and therefore amplify the value of his companies as a whole, make this man tremendously rich and powerful, and basically like dictate our future as a species, or all your energy bills are going to go up significantly and you're all fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we've dubbed Elon King of Earth.
I'm down.
Yeah, it's going to make all our lives better, right?
Well,
Somebody's going to do it. It's him. That's why you got to have the interviewer. He's, talking about his favorite brunch.
Yeah, pizzas and
He has to appeal likable and human.
yeah, and Sam Altman was on what's that show called? Jimmy
Tonight
Fallon
Show or something like that.
Jimmy Fallon, right?
I guess.
Yeah, it's one of those guys.
Yeah, one of those like late night.
And they're asking him like just non interesting questions as well, right?
Yeah, it's just PR stuff, right?
It's all coordinated. It feels like
It's a monkey dance. Yeah, of course it's coordinated. These guys are literally architecting like the next societal leap.
yeah, they're trying to make sure that humanity doesn't riot before they get the robots out there.
Yeah, again, because there is a transition that happens from point A to point B, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So part of that transition is whether or not human beings accept this new reality, right? So
Yeah.
you got to cozy it up a bit, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and other news, Coinbase has enabled DEX trading for all Solana tokens without official listings. So that means that the NAT token, which is on Solana, very low liquidity at the moment, but
We're working on plans to accelerate that.
Yeah, you can get it now on Coinbase.
But how?
I don't know. I haven't seen the interface for this yet. I don't know if it's like rolled out, but they've been saying this for a couple of months now. Maybe it's like extremely close.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like the Coinbase app users only, or like when they say Coinbase, do they mean Coinbase?
I think the Coinbase. I think it is the Coinbase app.
Wow. Well, that changes the app pretty significantly. Like, what is that interface now? Because there's obviously like an infinite array of Solana tokens, right?
Yeah. I guess you better know what you're trying to buy.
Yeah. Exactly. But nonetheless, that broadens the, I guess, retail access to things like NAT.
Yeah.
So we need to get in communications with Coinbase. So they add NAT to the, what's it called? Like the educations platform or whatever.
Yeah, the learnings thing.
Yeah, so that you can take like a little
Coinbase
test
Learn. Yeah.
and get like a little bit of NAT.
Yeah, all they got to do is just throw up that AI video. Who was it? Was it Shaco? No, it was a hard driver.
Yeah.
Hard driver who generated it, and it was perfect.
Yeah, I mean, one day, dude, we're getting closer to that for sure.
All right, so I want to talk about this. So now we're gonna discuss a little bit of Nat here. But this guy Shinaka. Hopefully, I'm not butchering his name. He commented on this video. I think it's from 2024, but check this out. Have you seen this?
I don't think so. No.
Essentially, what Bitcoin is doing is taking excess energy, storing it into a new form. Mm-hmm. It's called currency. And you take that currency and you take it wherever you like. And so you took energy from one place and now you've transported it everywhere. Now, essentially.
Yeah, that's a very simplified explanation of Bitcoin, I guess.
Yeah, so he's talking about the thermodynamics property of transferring or converting energy from one form to another.
Right.
So we're taking the excess energy of like our energy production and we're converting it to Bitcoin, which is thereby the low entropy state asset, and then that could be valued to whatever the market decides the value of that is. And so that's pretty important.
Yeah, so it's energy plus scarcity equals, I guess, spot value.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the physics of money just changed forever. For 10,000 years, humanity faced one impossible problem. Energy cannot be stored. Energy cannot be transported. Energy dies the moment it is born unused. And so he has some examples over here that I thought was interesting, is that energy has become portable, joules transformed into hashes, hashes settled into Satoshis, Satoshis moved across borders. And there was some examples here. Bitcoin mining now consumes 211 terawatts. Oh, here it is. So in 2024, Texas was forced to throw away 8 terawatt hours of wind and solar energy. Brazil discarded 28 terawatt hours in 8 months. Globally, $20 billion in clean energy vanishes annually because grids cannot absorb it. So there's places on Earth that are generating all this energy, and there's nothing really consuming it, so they just like release it. And it's not like they can put it in batteries. I mean, they have some battery storage, but I guess it wasn't implemented for these particular locations. But this is where you're supposed to use Bitcoin to consume it. Yeah, excess energy to consume that.
So these are these power companies, the big ones.
Yeah, and we talk about this in the NAT paper with surplus energy, right? If there's surplus energy and Bitcoin is consuming over 51% of that, then it's unlikely that there could be any collusion to attack Bitcoin with extra energy.
Yeah, like a threat of attack, basically.
Yeah.
Which is like the most optimal, desirable state for Bitcoin itself, like to maintain the confidence, I think, in like the properties that Bitcoin upholds in order for it to like, you know, have this semblance of intrinsic value, which a lot of the old heads like what's his name? Peter Schiff. He just went to battle with CZ.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys saw that. But yeah, like there's a lot of people in society and in finance that still struggle with this like this idea of intrinsic value versus non-intrinsic value, and they always point to some sort of physical thing, you know, whether it's a metal that has some actual functional purpose to it. You know, I could use this in electronics or whatever, so it has intrinsic value.
Yeah.
Versus something completely digital that doesn't have this like hardwired use case for it to produce some other like added value for society.
Yeah, we've seen examples where digital stuff has some value with Counter-Strike and all those skins that people were going after, selling for millions of dollars. These were just like database assets. They were not even NFTs.
Right, and a lot of that is dependent again on like I don't know if confidence is the word. It's just like human appreciation for the thing.
Yeah, plus the network effect of that others valued those skins equally within that network, and so it was desirable.
Yeah. In that case, yeah, those skins, they have utility and application, but like even without them, they don't improve like your game performance in any way.
No, that would ruin the game. But the whole point is to look cool.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a reflection of, I guess, accrued wealth, if you will, in the digital sense. You know,
yeah, that's why people buy like really expensive houses and cars, right? To look cool. It doesn't really improve anything.
Yeah, that's why NFTs did what they did 4 years ago, right? Because people understood that there is a lot of value in the digital space, right? All you have to do is like spend any amount of time during your adolescent years playing some video games, and you understand that, right? People who have like, you know, superior digital goods versus their peers, they tend to get more, I don't know, leverage in a sense.
Yeah.
In the like digital playground, if you will. The same way physical like wealth accrual gives you that advantage too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
If you walk around with $1 million watch, people tend to, I would assume, I wouldn't know. I would assume people will treat you differently, right?
Yeah, I would assume as well, because I don't know.
I guess we don't have any rich friends to like, you know, inquire. It's like, hey man, whatever happened since you bought that Richard Mille, you know?
Yeah. Did that change your life? And you'll probably...
To a small degree, maybe. It's like when I walk into a Starbucks, nobody notices. But if I go to Dubai, I'm pretty sure people are like, come on in, friend.
Yeah.
You know, join the Richard Mille Club.
Yeah, people at Starbucks don't know what $1 million watch is.
It looks like a damn Burger King watch, right? That's what I would assume. But yeah, it's like you go to the places where all the other people are flexing their wealth and their you know, financial positioning within this like system.
Yeah, yeah.
You have added weight.
Yeah, so so I saw that tweet, and so I looked into this guy deeper because he made a lot of sense, and he goes someone comments and says you can literally make the same case argument for anything else that requires energy to produce, and then buy and sell, which is almost everything. Though I agree Bitcoin is unique and pure in this respect, the argument is stated above is terrible and one that doesn't hold water. So he goes in to say the argument is about game theory and fee variance, which is unique to proof-of-work security models. So I was like, fee variance? I was like, okay, what do you mean? So here's what gold, steel, and almost everything else don't have. Security that is directly proportional to producer revenue. I was like, wait a minute, is he going to say what I think he's going to say?
Okay.
And then if gold miners earn less, gold doesn't become easier to steal. If Bitcoin miners earn less, Bitcoin becomes proportionately easier to attack. The security budget is the attack cost. And then it says difficulty adjustment that absorbs all efficiency gains. If energy gets cheaper for all miners, more enter, difficulty rises, margins return to zero. Cheap energy doesn't change the equilibrium. It just shifts who mines. So basically saying more hash power does not equal more security, which I agree.
Yes.
Game theoretic attack vectors that emerge from reward variance. Princeton 2016 paper, which has 382 citations and 0 refutations, proves that rewards vary block to block. Deviant strategies outperform honest mining. It says this has nothing to do with energy. It's pure mathematics. So basically, it's unlikely that fees are going to really secure the network when it's multi-trillion dollars, because deviant strategies, or let's say paying miners to do an attack, is going to yield more revenue for them than being honest, right?
Right. At some point. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the requirement that honest behavior remains in the Nash equilibrium, steel producers don't face undercutting costs or attacks. Gold miners don't worry about fee sniping. The thesis isn't energy cost bad. The thesis is no proof of work system has operated on fees alone. Academic consensus shows fees only regimes are game theoretically unstable. Current fees are 1% of security budget. This is unprecedented experiment. Bitcoin's own developers acknowledges Peter Todd, Andrew Polstra, and James O'Byrne. Dismissing it is same argument for everything, reveals the argument wasn't understood.
Wow.
Yeah,
He's
so
speaking our codex, dude.
Yeah, so he's one of the guys that gets it.
Yeah, and it's good to see this Princeton.
Yeah, the 2016 Princeton
study, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of like reaffirming things, and I like the timing all the way back in 2016, dude.
Yeah, this was a problem upon, I mean, I wouldn't say upon the launch of Bitcoin. I don't think it was a problem, because I think the point of Bitcoin was to be peer-to-peer cash. And the theory is that people would use it as cash, and therefore there would be a ton of volume and transactions, and that would pay for the network. I still don't think that would be enough anyways, because the whole point, and this is why I think Satoshi misunderstood Bitcoin itself. The whole point of Bitcoin is to consume more energy. And as you consume more energy, the cost will inevitably be always higher. And that is the point of Bitcoin. It's supposed to be more costlier. And so there's no way fees would just support that mechanism. It's just impossible.
Right. So there's no advocacy for any kind of solution.
No.
Still.
No,
right?
Not at all.
But still, people are kind of bringing up the topic that needs discussion, right? And NAT fulfills, I guess, some beginning starting point, at least, whether it's you agree with it or you want to contend against it.
Yeah.
I think that's where we are in the point in time, right? We need to acknowledge a problem.
Oh, for sure.
And get the conversation started, right? Yeah, here's another like miner. I think he's kind of hearing the noise.
Yeah. Yeah, so this guy, he works with via BTC. He was like, okay, I'll buy it. NAT people, explain to me how your project is proof of work and how it is a net benefit for the Bitcoin network. No shilling, no one-liners, no AI answers. I want verifiable facts. Convince me. So here's something. So this guy comes in and says, not gonna lie, what is this about? This is kind of weird that he's using the NAT speak without knowing what NAT is.
That's the effectiveness of the of what he, I guess, labels as
the
shilling,
noise,
the noise,
the
shilling,
noise,
whatever. It's just
yeah. So let me explain what this NAT speak is. The reason why you're seeing a lot of people use NAT as a double entendre for just kind of explaining concepts using the word NAT in replace of not is because it is a marketing design mechanism to kind of propagate the NAT token in a way that's delivered in a new way.
Yeah, I mean, is this guy like totally new to crypto? Is like this is a very not necessarily the NAT speak, but the idea of people who are enthusiastic about some crypto finding their own personal ways of identification and relaying this enthusiasm to other people, right?
Yeah.
So NatSpeak is an effective vehicle for that. In other words,
I mean, so far it's penetrated into like vectors of society that don't necessarily understand what NAT is, but they understand that it's being used as a lingo.
yeah, and there's a lot of people who speak like this.
Yeah.
It's like, why is there this new digital language emerging? And why do they tend to like always pile in whenever somebody discusses like Bitcoin's subsidy?
That's way back in the day when we were on AOL Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
That was like the first time I was exposed to LOL.
Or Rafflecopter.
Oh yeah. I was like, man, what is this? It's
Lamau. Roller skates. What else? What else was out there,
Got
dude?
them all.
There was probably more, but yeah, you're right. It was like,
so it's a new lingo. It's like I don't know what this is. Like, what is this, guys? It's like laugh out loud. It's like
it's true. It's like that guy definitely nets.
And that was before you could Google it too.
That's right.
Yeah, so you either knew or you didn't, right?
Yeah.
It's one of those things. That's a real culture emergence from the internet itself.
That's right.
And we were happen to be there, present, and then like bled into mainstream.
Yeah.
Now everybody uses it, and it's totally lame now.
Yeah, and
Right?
but it's stuck, right?
For
People
sure.
still use it because you're not gonna put laugh out loud, right?
Yeah, what did people do before LOL? Just
Ha ha.
Ha.
ha. So lame.
Ha ha.
Ha. Like what the hell, dude? I don't know. Maybe internet's great.
And even you even put LOL when you're not really laughing. It's just like, oh, it's
like
kind
a
of
new,
funny.
yeah, it's a new way to end a sentence. Like LOL.
Yeah.
Just in case I made you giggle.
And then not only that, you could use LOL in a facetious way. It's like, oh, you don't know what that is? LOL. What a loser.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
Pretty good with your internet comms. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I've been battling out there for quite a while, dude.
I believe you. And you're not alone. You're not alone in this conquest.
No.
Which is, I think, really cool, right?
So this guy's asking, what is this about? It says these people post all over Bitcoin, post worse than Casbots.
Caspa, I think.
Caspa.
That's
You know what? We haven't looked into Caspa, and I also see the Caspa bots, but that tells me is like maybe we should look into it. If there's like
but the Caspa bots show up because they're trying to compete against Bitcoin, right? Like Caspa itself.
That's true.
They have like a different. It's like we recognize Bitcoin's
problems and we have solutions over here
as a new thing.
Yeah.
But like the NAT people, so you could perceive NAT people as like that. It's like, oh, they're just trying to
pull
flood Bitcoin.
Yeah, pull the value of Bitcoin away from Bitcoin.
Right. So like innately, and Adam Back kind of had this reaction too.
Yeah,
where,
100%.
Instinctively, he was like, oh, these guys are just trying to siphon the network effect of some kind from Bitcoin to some new thing that's VC backed and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Without doing any further investigation. So at least this guy, this is a proper Twitter post, right? He's like, okay, I hear the noise and instinctively I'm assuming it's probably bad, but prove me wrong.
And this is absolutely the right approach to anything. You're right. You remain skeptical. So he says, I can't find anything online that gives me a solid answer why it is good for Bitcoin, yet it is attached to Bitcoin mining. And I was like, you can't find anything online? Like nothing? It's like, man, we must be sucking it up out there, dude.
We might actually, though. Maybe
it's like nothing? It's like, that's wild.
How do you typically find things online these days? Like you go to Grok, right?
Well, the way that, so typically I'm scrolling through my feed and I find things that I find, I guess, interesting. So the algorithm is doing really well. But when I need to find something, I go to Grok or,
Yeah, so it'll be like, hey, Grok, you know what? I kind of want to, I don't know if I could test this, right? Because my Grok has like a bias.
It does have a bias, yeah.
So it knows about NAT.
Yes.
So we need like some fresh user to be like, okay, explain to me what these NAT people are talking about, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And see how coherent it is in its understanding. But yeah, so he didn't do that.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I was like, okay, let me take a step back and let's explain this because
you be the Grok.
Yeah.
Well, at one point in time we had human intelligence around to explain things.
Yeah.
We've completely forgot about that.
Right.
At least I have.
Yeah, and so this is what I wrote. 60% of Bitcoin hash power has already engaged with this token. It says Bitcoin miner revenue is the security budget for Bitcoin. That security budget is shrinking in proportion to the value of Bitcoin's network for every halving. Before NAT, Bitcoin miners rely on Bitcoin value to at least double for every halving. Doubling is exponential growth, which is impossible to sustain. This means the security budget, which is the miner revenue, will shrink over time as Bitcoin struggles to double at least every 4 years. And then, even if it does, you're maintaining today's security budget, which is roughly $20 to $30 billion in yearly revenue for all the miners, for an exponentially growing Bitcoin. For example, if Bitcoin doubles all the way to 2140, if each Bitcoin is worth $24 trillion per Bitcoin, which gives a network value of 504 quintillion, all secured by $30 billion per year. And I was like, okay, so what's wrong with that, right? You know, why can't Bitcoin be $24 trillion? So I was like, okay, well, 30 billion divided by 504 quintillion is all these zeros percentage.
All right.
And then, so this is the percent of the network that you are spending to secure 504 quintillion. I was like, okay, so what? I was like, still, you know, what's wrong with that? So to put into perspective, the United States spends $1 trillion per year for the military, which is about 3% of the GDP for the United States, or 50.4 billion times more than the Bitcoin security budget.
In that scenario.
In this scenario, yeah. So if this happens, Bitcoin will be worth 5 million times the GDP of Earth. So clearly, if this happens, Bitcoin will be worth 5 million times the world's GDP, but at the same time, the United States is spending 3% of their GDP to protect the United States.
Yeah, so it have to somehow not be attacked in order to get to that astronomically incalculable valuation.
Right. Yeah, so in other words, there might be actors, like let's assume that this does play out. There might be actors that want to attack Bitcoin when it's only secured by $30 billion to attack a $504 quintillion asset. There might be, right? And so $30 billion is clearly not enough to secure that network. So I say clearly this is not going to happen. And then I say NAT comes from the bits field of each Bitcoin. The bits field is the difficulty adjustment target. So if the hash power goes up, we have a smaller target and therefore less NAT emitted per block. If hash power decreases, we have a little more NAT emitted per block. Each time a Bitcoin miner successfully mines a block, they receive Bitcoin plus NAT. And NAT doesn't have, and therefore it is a more sustainable security budget than Bitcoin's exponential decay. So to match the block reward, NAT would only have to reach 350 billion market cap. So compare 350 billion with the 2 trillion market cap of Bitcoin just to equalize, right? So it took a lot more monetary energy to have $350,000 worth of Bitcoin delivered to the block winner.
Right.
But it only takes $350 billion of NAT to deliver the same value. And then I say with NAT, it can grow as Bitcoin grows, which means Bitcoin miner revenue can now grow as Bitcoin grows without relying on exponential growth of Bitcoin, and more details on the NAT paper. So this is the most valuable part. Like it's hidden in here, but the most valuable part about NAT is not like where it comes from and DMT and all this stuff. The most valuable part is that because it's been decoupled from this exponential decay of Bitcoin, we can have Bitcoin grow at its slow pace, 20, 30% compound annual growth rate, as Michael Saylor likes to say, is going to grow at that pace for the next 20 years. That's a slow pace compared to what needs to happen for Bitcoin, which is double every 4 years. And you can sustain 20% compound annual growth rate or 30% with NAT, because as it grows, let's assume slowly, NAT can grow proportionally to Bitcoin to grow from $30 billion per year to 40, 50, 60, 100 billion.
Right.
And that's the value of NAT.
Yeah, and who's to say it stops at NAT, right? Potentially?
Yeah.
Theoretically, right? If NAT proves itself as like a valuable appendage.
Sure, I totally agree.
As a second subsidy?
I think there could be a third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th subsidy.
Yeah, and
it's just
we
won't
call them subsidies, really. It's just new value created from Bitcoin itself, right? Like,
Yeah.
Or commodities, whatever you want to label them as, right?
Yeah.
There's no reason to really stop it at 2 if it works, right? If we're trying to ultimately increase the security budget.
Yeah. So what does it take to do that? It takes a community.
It takes a consensus, I guess, and understanding. It's like, digital productivity, I think, has more perceivable intrinsic value if it's rooted to something as thermodynamically secured as Bitcoin versus like something not, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which right now the conscious, I guess, understanding of digital creation is it doesn't need any of that, right? We could just manifest things arbitrarily. So like, that's kind of like the back end consequence of NAT working as a subsidy experiment. Right?
Yeah. So I said that the most important thing about NAT is that it's been decoupled from the decay of Bitcoin, but it's also important like where NAT comes from. It comes from Bitcoin block data itself, the bits field, and it's using digital matter theory. Like it is kind of important where it comes from, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that it's decoupled from the decay, and therefore it can grow as Bitcoin grows.
Yeah, but the other thing is like what makes it, at least under the scope of Elon's razor, the more likely outcome, right? Because it is the more interesting solution, I guess, right?
Yeah, because the alternate solutions, and we're going to talk about this here, is solutions that really don't make anyone rich. They don't make anybody rich. And so Elon's razor suggests that the best outcome is the most entertaining outcome, or the most likely outcome is the most entertaining. And so the most entertaining outcome here is that people get rich through this mechanism, and as people get rich, Bitcoin gets more secure.
Yeah, and then like it's all cut from the fabric of Bitcoin itself, as opposed to just, again, arbitrarily spun out of thin air, right? It's like something that already existed since the point of Satoshi's like launch button. It was just a discovery process.
That's right, yeah.
That's way more interesting than, the counter reality, which is like, okay, people found a problem and invented a solution rather than people like discovered one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's discovery is always a much more interesting
100%
narrative tell, right? I would think.
Yeah. So there, man, NAT, if this is the first time you're exposed to NAT, this really goes deep. This is just like surface level, like understanding of Bitcoin. And then once you understand the solution to Bitcoin's problem, like the NAT token, DMT, which is digital matter theory, these are deep subjects.
It also fulfills Occam's razor, by the way, right?
It does, yeah.
Meaning like the most likely is the most
simplest,
simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is as simple as it gets. You don't have to change anything at the consensus layer.
Yes.
You don't have to change any code to Bitcoin.
Nope, nothing.
We don't need a knots versus core like shit flinging contest. We don't need to bring up child CP. Yeah, almost fumbled there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens? You get like the algorithm finds your video if you say it?
No, I think there's just a bad taste in the air when people listen to that stuff.
Yeah, you don't want to subject people to that.
Yeah, that mental image, I guess.
Yeah, by saying it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but that's what's been weaponized to kind of like try and contend around these issues in the context of the Bitcoin community, right? So none of that has to happen. It's frictionless. It's actually already kind of happened. It's already done.
It's already done.
There's already minor consensus, 60%.
60%, yeah.
So it's like
this is the biggest thing happening in all of Bitcoin, bigger than Jack Mallers and Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy. This is bigger than all that stuff. Why? Because if this doesn't get fixed, it does not matter what these guys do.
Mm-hmm.
And so the good news is it's fixed.
We did it.
It's just nobody knows about it.
Did you feel good about yourself, dude? You feel like you need a tap?
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, it wasn't just us. Thing.
Yeah.
There's a massive community behind this, and Benny and his team contributed significantly to this. I mean, it's been like a multi-year kind of effort here.
Yeah.
But like you're saying, it's kind of been happening in the shadows in a sense. Like the major Bitcoin influencers have no idea this is happening.
Yeah, even the ordinal influencers still don't understand what's happening.
They definitely don't understand, but they know.
They know.
They've been pinged.
Yeah.
They hear about it because I infiltrate those circles from time to time. And like they'll be like, "Oh shit, that NAT thing, those NAT guys are at it again," right? But like, oh, they'll scoff at it, or it's like, whatever, dude. You know,
it's like I don't have enough ridges in my brain to understand that, so I'm not going to spend any time on it.
Right. It's either that or I just my NAT sack's too small.
Yeah,
it's too small.
That's usually the case. But the good news is you could grow your NAT sacks.
You can.
You can grow them.
It's very, it's very doable.
Yeah. Yeah. You
it's
just
a
gotta
simple thing.
Yeah, you just gotta buy it up, and your NAT sacks grow, and then you're all of a sudden you're bullish.
Yeah. Now you have like some actual firm, NAT sacks to stand on, dude. You can go out there
and actually swing it around and
whatever, dude.
And flex.
Whatever people do with large NAT sacks, right? I'm sure it's a very luxurious lifestyle. At one point in time, it will give you the Richard Mille experience in Dubai, right?
That's true.
You walk around with your NAT sack fully hanging out there.
Yeah, all the doors will open.
Yeah. Even in the coffee shops, they'll respect you, dude. Even in the Starbucks, it's like that's my guy.
Right.
So yeah, man, I think I agree with you from the context of like things happening. This has to be up there as like one of the bigger like events unraveling in real time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hilarious how it's like the least acknowledged, the least understood, and I think that's probably how it's supposed to be.
Probably, yeah.
Like Bitcoin again, we're always gonna relay our experience through NAT to like early days of Bitcoin, because I'm sure those guys were saying the same thing in 2010, 2011 days. Like, why isn't anybody else aware that money's like really fucked?
That's true.
Yeah.
How
come nobody's reacting to what happened to the 2008 financial collapse? Like,
You know who was aware? Peter Joseph.
Yeah.
That was 2007.
Who's him again? For people listening.
He's the guy who started Zeitgeist, the movement.
Okay. Yeah. So he was deeply aware.
Yeah. That was the first time I learned about how money worked. I was shocked. I was shocked that it just printed out of thin air. I was like, there's no way that's how it works. Just no way.
Did they attempt to like teach us in school at all? Like
no way.
No shot.
Absolutely not, dude.
Really? What?
Yeah, this is a failure of our school system. This is where it starts.
But we had like economics in high school. What did we talk about? Like
I think economics was just like
stocks. I remember we did like a stock simulation.
Yeah, but that was like 1 week's worth of like.
They taught us how to be degens.
Yeah.
Basically, that's your economics.
I think it was more
course.
like, you're gonna have expenses like house and car.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And credit cards. Like it was just.
Yeah, right. I know like deep understanding of like how.
No, man, this is I think a mistake.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. But yeah, so that's what we're facing. They're definitely not teaching, the Bitcoin sustainability problem. Nobody's aware. Even in our crypto world, people are not like really propagating it effectively, I guess.
I think part of it is like, okay, why are we going to discuss a problem with Bitcoin if there's no like viable solution, right? Because up until that, it was either make Bitcoin infinite, demarriage, which is like tax everybody who's holding Bitcoin.
Yeah, I could see that. It's very similar to AI, right? It's like, why raise the alarm bells for like the AI, societal takeover and like spook everybody without like a solution in place.
Yeah, I agree
to
with
mitigate the effect of like a panic, right? It's like, oh shit, if the world becomes aware of Bitcoin's like internal conundrums.
Yeah.
I mean, you would assume a panic would ensue of some kind, right? And you don't want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
We all need to be very collectively aligned in Bitcoin being bullish.
What's interesting is the people who've ignored this problem, like the big heads out there, they've ignored this problem and it's like it silently solved itself.
Or it's attempting to. It's definitely not solved.
It's definitely not solved, but it will be solved. Right. That's the only way. It just is.
Yeah. Again, we've talked about the two razors here.
Yeah.
Are there any other razors out there? Whatever. Those are the two that count.
Yeah, those are the two that matter, really.
Yeah. I mean, so therefore, it's the most likely future event, I guess, to occur. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So another person contributing to propagating the knowledge of NAT is Shako. He came up with this this Masari.
Shout out Shako.
Yeah, this Masari kind of like breakdown of NAT token and the problem of Bitcoin, and he did a massive job because it looks like it came from Masari.
It looks professional as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would expect if I'm paying Delphi Digital or Masari, whatever.
Yeah, this
$2,000 a
yeah,
month or whatever for
yeah.
their like deep research analyst.
This is the kind of stuff I need to see. I'll pay $2,000 a month for this.
Yeah, it's like, all right, thank you, Masari, for this well thought out and executed
Yeah,
alpha.
And
piece.
then you look it up, it's $26 million.
Right.
It's like, hell, I'm all in.
I think so. I feel like that's kind of the point of all this, right? At least from the context of what it is we do on this channel. We look for these.
Yeah, so here, by the way, Spider Pool, Via BTC, Amp Pool, F2 Pool, they've all adopted NAT. That's what top 4 of the top 5.
So who would you say the remaining blue bars here would have like the most impact if they were to come next?
Well, Foundry, just because they
obviously, right?
have the highest hash power. They're American. These all 4 are Chinese. So they're competing with the same demographic. And so it makes a lot of sense why they've adopted it first, just because one did it. And then it was like, okay, if my competitor does it, I have to.
Right. So then it would, if you're trying to, make a poly market bet here, it's like, who's going to be next? You definitely throw your money on a Chinese pool, right?
Yeah, so Mara Pool, Luxor, SEC Pool, Binance Pool. Yeah, so it would be Binance Pool.
That would be my next like assumption. If whatever the mining like industry apparatus relays their details of their operations and their business, whatever it is they're like emphasizing at any point in time.
Yeah.
Binance is definitely plugged into that nexus of activity.
Well, I would think so. They have the most successful exchange on the planet as far as crypto goes.
But they just conveniently have a Bitcoin mining pool as well, is my point. So it's like,
well, yeah,
someone somewhere within that company apparatus is like hearing about NAT, I would imagine.
I would hope so.
Yeah. So that would be like the most impactful next miner, right?
Yeah, I would have to agree.
If I were to make like a poly market bet.
Yeah, because they have at least 2 businesses, probably more. One is an exchange, another one is mining Bitcoin. And so if NAT helps miners, it helps Binance, and that would help their other business to support the token that supports the other business, right? And so it makes sense. This would have the biggest impact.
Yeah, so that's man. So I guess it's just like a wait and see moment to see the rest of these miners kind of, embrace the inevitable, if you will.
Yeah.
And then I guess the final boss of it all will be Foundry.
Yeah.
That's going to be the nail in the coffin, right? I think. So it's already kind of nailed a bit, but there's still like, if you're
that would be like 92 to 95% hash power if Foundry gets in.
Yeah. But if you're still, Uma Thurman and Kill Bill, you could still punch your way out of this coffin. It's not like fully locked, right?
Yeah, well, evidence suggests evidence would disagree with you.
Oh yeah, there's some sort of okay, bring up that evidence because instinctively I would say 60% is like a majority.
Yeah,
but still, it's not like all the way finished. So there's still some probability where it could still not become inevitable, right?
Yeah. So I did some research, and Bitcoin has gone through some of these updates, and these updates require some sort of degree of consensus changes, right? And they included SegWit and Taproot. And so the 95% threshold and how it was met. So I was doing that research. It says SegWit activated via BIP 141 and deployed using BIP 9, signaling a requirement of 95% blocks. So what happened was over a 1-year span, at least 95% of the blocks within a difficulty adjustment period, which the total difficulty adjustment period is 2016 blocks. 95% of that is 1,900 blocks. To signal readiness during a single difficulty adjustment period. So if you have 2016 blocks, you have several miners contributing to adding those blocks to the chain, right? So as long as 95% of those blocks indicated that they were ready for the SegWit update or Taproot update, that means that the network is ready to adopt this change. And so it took about 10 months before this, like the start of this test happened. It took about 10 months to actually reach 95%. And so what it did was the deployment window was between November 15th, 2016, and it ended November 15th, 2017. Miners needed to update their software to Bitcoin Core 013 to include the signaling logic. Signaling period measured strict over the difficulty adjustment periods. If 95% met the signal, the upgrade was locked in. And so then it was met. So by mid-2017, right, so basically 6 to 7 months, the signal overheard hovered around 30 to 40%, largely due to minor resistance favoring larger blocks. So what happened was a user-activated soft fork forced the miners to go from 30 to 40% to all the way to nearly 100%. So it was a threat by nodes within the ecosystem to say, if you continue mining blocks without the consensus upgrade that we want, we're just going to ignore your blocks. And so that meant that miners would be spending energy to mine blocks that was not accepted as consensus.
That's kind of interesting. That's
Yeah.
actually very interesting.
Yeah, so then it was like, okay, well, I don't want to waste my money, so I'm just going to do what they tell me to do. I'm just going to go and run Bitcoin Core 013, and I'm going to put that signal in, and I still make my money.
So is there potential here for a repeat of history moment in context of NAT, where miners clearly want one thing versus what the nodes want? And
Yeah.
there's like a soft fork.
Well, that's
result?
the thing. So I did additional research. I was like, is there a way a user-activated soft fork could just ignore this? It was like, no, because this doesn't require any consensus changes. Whether you do soft forks.
Talking about NAT.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's no soft fork that could be done that would affect NAT because there's no consensus changes. We're using Bitcoin as it's supposed to be used, given that there was a SegWit and Taproot update, and that was passed. So we're using Taproot.
Right, yeah.
And so there's no software soft fork that could happen that could just ignore this stuff.
Yeah, but you don't think there's like a scenario where egos take over from the Bitcoin Core developer group or whatever it is, that nexus of participants that kind of like are the arbiters of what Bitcoin ends up being?
Yeah,
it's like, you know, we like what NAT does, but you know, it wasn't officially like introduced our way
that's
to
the
our
thing.
process. So therefore, let's
but that's the
redo
thing.
it.
The miners adopted it already.
I know.
They did the same process they did here. They just didn't do it in the same exact way with signaling.
Right.
And so they've already made the signal.
Yeah, the signal's there.
The signal has already been achieved that they moved NAT.
Right.
And that's the signal in this case, right? The signal is not always going to be the same thing for every single case. And so, but there's a point where 60% was the threshold between maybe not doing it to once it reaches 60%, that means everybody's doing it. And so, so Taproot activations, it went through the same thing, 90% threshold. So it wasn't 95, it was 90%, and it did it within 3 months.
Okay, well, oh, there it is. 60-70%.
Yeah, so both cases show 60 to 70% is the tipping point for inevitably to achieve this formal activation. Once hit, holdouts face exodus. So to jump from 30% to 100%, Taproot built goodwill to hit 90% organically for emergence. So 60% hash power often triggers a flywheel competitors to join and avoid irrelevance. Because if competitors don't adopt NAT and NAT gets to $1 billion, 300 billion, your competitors are generating more money than you.
100%, yeah.
And they're going to therefore outcompete you.
So we need to get NAT to $1 billion, dude.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty nailed in the ground.
Yeah.
There's nothing more important in the context of like what we could do with our lives. Right? I mean, if we're talking cementing our stamp on the history of Bitcoin, and if it is fully aligned with Elon's Kardashev vision for humanity,
Yeah.
and then because of that, and that has contributed to like the preservation of Bitcoin's status as like a thermodynamically an energy consumer and therefore value producer.
Yeah.
It's like therefore we get our ride on one of his rocket ships.
Oh yeah, I want to ride, dude.
I want Bitcoin satellites in space.
Yeah, that's it's gonna happen. So Bitmain, all these like companies that generate ASICs, they're gonna build satellites. They have to because it is way more efficient to mine Bitcoin in space than it is to do it on Earth, which is a crazy thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, and like how? So what are the means for them to be able to do that?
So think about this: is like they still have to purchase a ride to space satellites. They have to build the satellites. But think about the hash power. Because you're leveraging space and you're radiating heat basically for free, and you have infinite electricity through the sun, you could theoretically build an ASIC that has superior hashing capabilities than anything you could build on Earth.
Right.
That you could sustain on Earth, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that hash power is going to exponentially grow, and we need the cost to grow, not the hash power to grow. And so now you could see a lot more of these competitors putting things into space, getting closer to the sun, and then hash power basically exponentially continues to grow. But the cost is the most important thing to the cost of attack. And so yeah, this is the stuff that we're going to see, and that is supporting that trajectory.
100%. Yep, and that's where we're trying to head, dude. NAT in space.
NAT in space.
Then we have our reason to, hop on one of those Blue Origin trips just to like be out there. It's like, oh shit, that one's mining some NAT.
Astronauts.
Dude, there it is, dude. Then the astronauts are actually born.
It's been decreed.
How poetic that we're from like Houston, right? Like this Space City. This is the full circle moment, dude.
Yeah, I mean, so now that we have the NAT token in space, that means that eventually we're gonna have an interview with Elon, right?
I would think so. I think it. I guess. Yeah. If all of a sudden people who are like purchasing rides on his fleets,
it's like
Starship fleets,
it's like because of NAT holders.
Yeah, it's like companies like, okay, what are you paying us in Bitcoin and NAT? Of course.
Yeah,
he's gonna want to know.
So what you're saying is NAT has a partnership with SpaceX coming?
Already,
dude.
It's already
on the books.
Price it in, boys.
Yeah.
Price it in. What are you waiting for?
Yeah, so that's the day I'm looking forward to.
That's what I'm saying, dude. Is there anything else worth working on? I don't think so.
Yeah, get a tour of SpaceX.
Yeah. That's what gets us to Mars, dude.
Yeah.
We got to get NAT up there. Yeah.
Imagine if we're the first ones to go to Mars.
No, we won't be the first ones to go to Mars, dude. Why would we be the first ones?
We'll send a little bit of NAT and like a little ledger, and we'll send it to Mars.
But how?
We
didn't create spaceship technology.
Well, Elon's already going to Mars, so it's like we just send a little USB chip to Mars.
Yeah, we'll hitch a ride on there, and whatever little time capsule he wants to bury underneath Mars's ground.
Yeah.
His like breaking ground event.
Yeah,
where his team will be the first humans to land on Mars.
Right.
And then we'll have a little bit of NAT in a ledger.
Yes.
Like you guys bury this with you.
Yes.
In case you don't ever return.
NAT, go to Mars, dude.
I'm looking forward to it. That's like podcast 10 years from now,
It's inevitable.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of work to do, dude. So back to work we go.
Yeah.
If you're wondering why we're like one post a week, that's it.
Because we're working.
We're working on some things, and you'll know about them soon enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
NAT related.
Very NAT related.
All right, guys, that's it for us. That's been the podcast. We talked about the NAT token, some updates, something for you to go home in a happy mood. TJ, we got Tom Lee predicting $100,000 Ethereum.
That's very happy news.
Yeah, I'll believe that when NAT hits the Mars surface.
Yeah. Maybe on equal time horizons, dude. Potentially 10 years from now.
Yeah.
100K ETH and NAT on Mars, dude. We did it.
yeah, so all the links will be in the description. And if you guys have any question on the NAT token, hopefully we can get this guy, Cinco Doggo, to join us in a Twitter space this coming week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So look forward to that. I appreciate you guys for watching. We'll catch you in the next podcast.
Peace.